The ice winds of Valar 9 howled with a fury that could strip flesh from bone. Captain Leora Venn adjusted her thermal visor, scanning the frozen wasteland through the viewport of her scout vessel. The distress beacon had been faint, almost swallowed by the planet's magnetic interference. But her sensors had caught it nonetheless. Another dumping ground, she muttered, her breath fogging in the frigid air despite the ship's heating systems. The Galactic Council's member species had a disturbing habit of abandoning things on frozen worlds. Obsolete technology, failed experiments, and sometimes living beings that had outlived their usefulness. Leora had seen it too many times. But something about this signal felt different. She brought her vessel down through the swirling snow, landing near the source of the transmission. As she stepped onto the frozen surface, her boots crunched against ice that had existed for millennia. The temperature readout on her suit display made her wince. -73 degrees Celsius. Nothing should survive out here. The beacon led her to a metallic cage half buried in snowdrifts, its bars frosted over with thick ice. Inside, a massive shape lay motionless. Leora approached cautiously, her hand instinctively moving to the plasma cutter at her hip. Then she saw it clearly. A creature of magnificent proportions lay curled in the cage, its fur matted with ice crystals that glinted like diamonds. It resembled the great cats of ancient Earth, tigers, lions, leopards, but stood easily 3 meters at the shoulder. Its coat was a stunning pattern of silver and deep blue, striped with black markings that seemed to absorb light. Massive paws bore claws the length of Leora's forearm, but what struck her most were its eyes. They were open, staring at her with an intelligence that transcended mere animal instinct. Golden amber swirled in those eyes, and in them Leora saw something humanity knew all too well: betrayal. "By the stars," she whispered. The creature's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. It was alive, barely. Frost had formed around its muzzle, and its body shook with violent tremors. Someone had left it here to die, stripped of its dignity, caged like vermin. Leora's jaw tightened. She'd seen the galaxy's cruelty before. But this ignited something primal in her chest, the same fury her ancestors must have felt when they saw injustice and decided to stand against it. She activated her comm. "Venn to Defiant Hope. I need the medical bay prepped for an emergency xenobiological rescue. Large predator, severe hypothermia, possibly critical condition. Captain, the quarantine protocols," her medical officer began. "Override them. That's an order." Leora pulled out her plasma cutter and began working on the cage's lock mechanism. The metal resisted, designed to withstand extreme conditions. As she cut through the bars, the creature's eyes followed her every movement, suspicious yet too weak to resist. "Easy there," she said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. Whatever they did to you, whoever left you here, that ends now." The final bar gave way with a screech of protesting metal. Leora pulled the cage door open and stepped inside, her heart pounding. The creature could kill her with a single swipe, even in its weakened state. But she'd learned long ago that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just their technology or their stubbornness. It was their capacity for compassion. Even when logic screamed otherwise, she knelt beside the massive feline, removing her thermal coat and draping it over the creature's torso. It was inadequate, laughably so, but she activated the coat's heating elements to maximum. "You're coming with me," she said firmly. "Can you walk?" The creature's ears twitched. It made a sound, part growl, part whimper, that resonated in Leora's chest. Slowly, painfully, it tried to rise. Its legs buckled, muscles locked from the cold. Without hesitation, Leora activated her exoframe's power assist. The servos in her suit whined as she positioned herself beside the creature. "Lean on me. We're getting you to the ship." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature shifted its weight against her, and together they began the agonizing journey across the ice. Each step was a battle against the wind, the cold, and the creature's failing strength. But Leora didn't stop. Humans didn't stop. It was what made them dangerous, what made them different from every other species in the galaxy. They simply refused to give up. By the time they reached the ship's cargo bay, Leora's muscles screamed in protest and her exoframe's power cells were nearly depleted. But they'd made it. She guided the creature onto the heated deck plating and immediately activated the emergency medical protocols. As warmth flooded the bay, the creature's shaking gradually subsided. Its breathing steadied, becoming deeper, stronger. Those intelligent golden eyes never left Leora's face. "What do they call you?" she asked quietly, pulling up the creature's identification chip data from the cage's broken terminal. The screen flickered to life, displaying Galactic standard text. Scar of the Iceclaw tribe. Battle companion to Three-Noid Ambassador Velkoth. Status terminated. Reason: deemed too aggressive for diplomatic missions. Sentence: exposure on Valar 9. Leora's blood boiled. They threw you away like garbage because you were too fierce? Because you wouldn't break? Scar rumbled, a sound that vibrated through the deck. Despite the exhaustion, despite the near-death experience, defiance burned in those eyes. This was no mere beast, this was a warrior, a survivor, someone who'd been betrayed by those he'd served. Leora extended her hand slowly, palm up, a gesture of trust. Scar of the Iceclaw. I'm Captain Leora Venn of the human vessel Defiant Hope. We have a saying on Earth: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But more than that, humans don't abandon pack. For a long moment, Scar simply stared at her outstretched hand. Then, with visible effort, he lifted one massive paw and placed it gently in her palm. The claws that could have torn her apart remained sheathed. In that gesture, an understanding passed between two species, two warriors who recognized something fundamental in each other. Welcome aboard, Leora said with a fierce smile. Let's show the galaxy what happens when they underestimate the bonds forged in ice and fury. Scar's rumble deepened, and if Leora didn't know better, she'd swear it sounded almost like approval. The galaxy had made a mistake. They'd left a warrior to die, not realizing that humanity had a habit of collecting such souls and forging them into something the universe would learn to fear. The story of Captain Leora Venn and Scar of the Iceclaw had only just begun.